I love cycling through this part of the world. It's near where I grew up and where I spent a lot of time cycling when I was a kid. Always with 10p in my pocket to call my mum if I had a puncture that I couldn't fix. On my Coventry Eagle bicycle, laden with so many trick bits and mirrors and racks and water bottles and odometers and all of that, that it was barely rideable. Where were we? Oh yes, we were south of Dijon, heading south into the mountains, and I have less recall of that part of the trip. I don't think I missed any if I said that the route mainly, some good routes through pleasant old towns, lots of deserted villages, like, again, massive depopulation, so it would appear, rural depopulation, good cycling roads through woodland and some rolling hills. Oh yes, where did I go? I went to Pellini, ended up in Pellini a couple of days before the Tour de France passed through, decked out in all of the bunting, ready for the Tour de France. Super pretty spot. And then from Pellini, you need to go, basically get up onto the mountain massif, up onto the top, where, I don't know what you gain, 500 or 1,000 feet of steep sided hill. And then once you get up there, it's rolling hillside again. But was that day? I don't know. I'll have to stop and check my map. I think it was. Anyway, yeah, Pellini, out of Pellini, took a pretty major road out of Pellini, which I crawled up on my fully loaded bike. Hello. At one point stopping in a refuge because I was absolutely chinned. A refuge, just one of these places where you're allowed to pull your car in, and got some photographs looking back down the valley. And it's one of those roads where the trucks were ploughing up the hill at 15 miles an hour in first gear and working hard, and I thought, Christ, this again, they would treat you very well, but you don't want to inconvenience other road users. So I ended up counting how long it took between the lorries going out of sight down the hill and passing my refuge, and it was a minute or so, or a couple of minutes probably, and then waited for a suitable gap, and then as soon as a suitable gap appeared, jumped on the bike and absolutely nailed it up the hill as fast as I could, having recovered a bit. Gotta say, it wasn't far to the top of the hill. It was only a couple of 100 meters, but I needed to stop. And when I got to the top of the hill, once again, I thought I need to cut off this main road and once again cut across country. And you know what? Once again, that worked out fine. It became a lot of up and down, a lot of slow grinding climbs. I think I was on a 32 or a 34 chainring at the back. Shimano 10 speed, does that go to 34 or does it just go to 32? What it was the biggest one I could find. And let me grind up the hills quite nicely. Overtaken by a lot of traffic. A lot of it a little bit iffy, but all fine in the end. And then it started to get dark. I thought I need to find somewhere to kip, and came in the gloom around the corner through some forestry to a crossroads, and on the crossroads, after miles and miles of nothing, was a big bar, big hotel, 2, 3, 4 story hotel, with a cafe bar at the front, people sitting, eating and drinking. I thought, do you know what, this will do me. So I went and sat and had a beer and asked if they had any rooms. And I don't know if it was just me, but they didn't have rooms. I will go back and stay there again, though, to make a point. They didn't have rooms, but they did have beer and they did have Wi-Fi. So I had a beer and then had another beer and then had another beer. And I went to order another beer. And the waitress said, the manager said, that is your last one. And I don't know if that's simply because the French have different approach to drinking, or whether it's because they wanted a shut. I'd like to think it's because they wanted a shut. There were two ladies sitting on the table next to me, and we got chatting to them. And one said, I'm going to go and have a look, see if I can find somewhere for you to sleep. And she came back and said, right, I've found a place. We can let you in through the side gate. It's in the garden here. It's right outside our window. And I thought, I'm not entirely liking the sound of that. And then she went off again and came back. I said, right, I found another place for you. And do you know what? It was perfect. It was a little tourist information hut at the start of a trail heading off into the woods. And it had one of those big, what would you call it? It's a roof, basically, a roof without sides, a cover, a portico. My vocabulary is gone. It had somewhere I could sleep under cover, outside, at the front, on gravel, and that was perfect. So I bedded down there for the night. And next morning, woke up, and it had a park bench. So I managed to sit at the park bench, make myself a brew, and do my admin, and then headed off last day into Geneva. I mean, that was a heck of a trip. The last day was a hell of a trip. Like super ups and downs over the mountains. Lots of grinds up, lots of super fast descents. A really enjoyable ride, to be fair. And then you can drive through the border and barely notice it, but drove through the border into Switzerland, and sort of half a mile further on, came to a marker at the top of the pass. And the highest point in the pass, that's it, I'm here. And that's then all downhill from there. And I've driven out of Geneva back home a few times over the mountains, and from my memory, you come out of Geneva, you point your nose at the mountain, pretty much, and you're onto the mountain and then over the other side. Which is all very easy on a Honda Blackbird, which was the fastest motorcycle in the world at one point. Not so easy on a bicycle. So I dropped down off the mountain, having a fantastic descent, mile after mile after mile of amazing roads, and pretty safe, to be fair. Please don't run me over. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello. And then dropped off the mountain finally and down into there's sort of 2 or 3 miles, maybe a mile, of built up area and agriculture between the edge of the lake and the bottom of the mountain. Goes down to 100 meters at places, right? So anyway, I dropped off, and in my mind's eye, when I dropped off, I was going to be in Geneva. But the reality was, when I dropped off, I was still about 15 miles out, 15 miles south down the lake. So then had to schlep around the lake. On actually decent Swiss infrastructure. If there was an issue with it, it was my navigation, not the Swiss infrastructure, which is just amazing. Puts us to shame. But finally getting into the centre of Geneva and down by the lake and overlooking the lake and overlooking the fountain late afternoon, early evening. And I was, in fact, no, it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so it was fine, it was good. Managed to get down there, go and get the obligatory photographs, and from there then up the hill. I was staying with my pal Lucy. She was still working, so up the hill, and not 200 yards from her house is a place that she wouldn't be seen dead in, an Irish bar, and I went and had myself a couple of pints of Guinness, and that really marked the end of that trip. And I think that took me, I know that took me 8 days, and I learnt loads from that trip, learnt no end around navigation, software applications for route planning, time and motion, you know. So I did a few bits and bobs. The first thing that I did when I came home was to buy a Garmin Explorer head. So I've got a Garmin Explorer 2. It's a great bit of kit. I think for somebody doing cycle touring rather than somebody doing racing or events or doing hardcore training, the Explorer 2 is perfect. It has all the things that you might need for navigation and none of the things that you don't. And it does have all of the stuff that you might need for some basic training. I've been using mine for training at home for the last 6 months. So my power meters plug into it, my heart rate monitor plugs into it. Of course, it syncs seamlessly with the Garmin ecosystem. If you ride it wearing a heart rate monitor with power meters, it will, after a few rides, give you an estimate of your functional threshold power, FTP, and your VO2 max and everything. So it's a good bit of kit. And do you know what? It's I can't say that it's revolutionised my touring, but because I had nav already in the UK, but it's much, much, much better. And much better if you have a phone with you and you're reliant on that phone for contact with the outside world, to have it in your pocket where it's safe and not have it on the handlebars where it's not safe, and if it gets wet it's screwed, and if you use it for nav it's going to run out of battery. Oh, and the other thing, certainly with my my iPhone X, I don't know if it was cycling or motorcycling, because I mounted it on the bars of my motorcycle as well, but there's the camera, the front-facing camera has optical image stabilization, so it's runs on little gimbals, and the vibration from the motorcycle or cycle buggered the gimbals, so really the phone's no good for taking photographs now. Anyway, cracking ride, really good fun. Wifey came down, wifey and my youngest. We stayed with Lucy for a few days, put the bike on top of the car, and then went up to Chamonix, had a holiday in Chamonix. But I did want to say that I had cycled from home to Chamonix, even if not in one contiguous session. So towards the back end of the holiday, I got up early one morning, cycled from Cham down to Geneva, went back to the fountain, so I stood exactly on the same spot, and then cycled back up to Cham. Took me a long time, like going back up the hill. I'm not saying I was very large, and I'm not saying that I was super unfit, but I was overtaken by a guy on roller skates, speed skates, inline skates. Actually, I was overtaken by a guy going uphill in the mountains on a hand bicycle, and I don't know what he was doing. He must be doing some sort of record attempt, because he was being followed by a car with blue lights and stuff, but they whizzed past me going uphill, like crikey. Where was I? Oh yes, the Chamonix. Got up to Chamonix, finished at Barred Up, the well-known expat Brit pub in Cham, for a couple of beers. So I've ridden from home to Barred Up I did, can you believe it, after all of that travel, broke a spoke on my Strada big fella wheels on the last day coming off a curb. And credit to Strada, I spoke to them when I got home and said, look, I've done a spoke, you put me another one in the post. And he said, mate, you've got a lifetime guarantee with that. Send it back, we'll service the wheel for you, make any adjustments necessary and replace the spoke. And so I did, and so did they. I just think that's cracking service. So given that wheel's designed for 110 kilos, right, and I'm at the time probably 105, and I'm carrying an easy 20 kilos of kit, I think it can be forgiven for busting one spoke. I've still got those wheels now. I'm not using them so much since I bought my new bikes. I'm not using the bike that they're on, but they will be coming out again soon. I have some big trips planned for the future, and I'm not sure. I still don't know which bike I'm going to take. So I've gone in the last 9 months from having one bike that does it all, the Trek 2.3 Alpha, with I think 28mm wheels on, tyres on. Not sure if it takes 32s. I think it's max 28s. But it's gone from that to a Linsky Cooper titanium road bike. Is that right? Or a Linsky road bike, which is just epic. Bought on eBay for £560. Absolute love it. Just love that bike. It's so light, it's good fun, it's beautiful. There's something about titanium, that's not the exclusivity of it and all of that, yada yada, because it wasn't an expensive bike. It's when you're building in metals, whether it's steel or alley or tie, the sections can be quite slim, and I just think that's really attractive. And you know, I went to buy a massively discounted Trek Domani in the shop, a couple of years old. And when I got to the shop, I looked at it and thought, you know what, I just don't like it. I mean, I'm riding one now, right, so I've got used to it. But the huge sort of sections of the tubes, I just don't find that appealing. So I love that Linsky, and it rides really well. It's super light. When I first bought it, every time I went out on it, even if it was just popping out to the bank or the GP and, you know, doing a few admin runs, ended up coming back with PBs on everywhere I went on it. It's just phenomenal. So I've got that. Now that bike is set up for Audax, I think. Ultras, probably. I bought it from a guy who's on the marketing team at Dotwatch. I know because I've stalked him a bit. So I'm guessing he's into the Ultras. I don't know if he put it together or bought it from somebody that did. But it's got Columbus Superlight forks on it. It's all Chris King headsets, and it's carbon seat post. It's the handmade wheels from, who's the big bike shop up north that do all of the Audaxing stuff. Set of handmade wheels from those guys, and Ultegra running gear, 10-speed. No, not Ultegra, Dura-Ace. It's all Dura-Ace, which, like, in its day, it's old, but in its day would have been super expensive stuff. I sort of totted up the value of all that gear new, and it'd be about £4,000. Now, I know that's an unfair comparison, or is no comparison, because it isn't 2010 anymore. But somebody at some point has invested a lot of time and love in that bike, and now it's mine to cherish. Yeah. Anyway, I bought that bike. I was really pleased with that. Proud of it. And then, but everybody says, you know, there should be the bike that everybody needs, but nobody wants, is a Trek Domani. Funny enough, the bike that I'm on today. So I missed one on eBay, didn't get my bid in on time. It was going for sub £1,000. And looked and looked and looked and carried on looking, and this one came up, and I think I paid about £900 for this. It's a 2019 SL6 Trek Domani, and I've got to say, like, I didn't love it, and when I first rode out on it, it just felt anodyne, I suppose. Is that the right word? Just nothing to it, and characterless. But having come up to Leicester a few weeks ago on my Thai bike, which is full of character, let's say, and I had a few issues with it. My bad, my fault. Getting on this just feels super smooth. Everything on it is smooth. The gear change is smooth. When you go over bumps in the road, it's smooth. And it could be that I use this bike when I go off and do big things. Who knows? But I like this bike. So I've gone from the Trek 2.3 Alpha to that and a titanium bike, to the 2.3 Alpha, the titanium bike, and the Trek Domani. And then I entered the Tracker in Spain, which is a gravel race. And obviously, you know, you can't do that on a road bike, you've got to get a gravel bike for it. And I saw a chap selling a 2015, I think, Trek Checkpoint SL6. So obviously I'm a big fan of the Trek, Mark. And I think he was looking for bids at £2,900 for it. And I think I was at work in Baghdad. I'd been over to the embassy for a few beers. And my last act before going to bed was thinking, well, what can you lose? Put a silly offer on it, 2,100. Or was it 2,200? Thought nothing more of it. Woke up late the next day, probably with 4 hours of training to do in my diary, care of my coach, Giovanni. Thank you, Giovanni. Went to the gym with a bit of a bad head. Did my time. And only that night, I'm sort of looking at my accounts and this, that and the other. I thought, Christ, I'm down £2,000. Where's that gone? And then the penny dropped that I'd won. This guy had accepted my offer, and I was now the proud owner of 4 bikes. Which of course makes you think, how am I going to explain this to my wife? I did shoot her a message and said, there's going to be a box turn up next week, which may or may not be bicycle shaped and may or may not have a bicycle in it. So wifey took that in, and it was there waiting for me when I got home from oh, I've forgotten the other way, there's no gate. It was there waiting for me when I got home from work. And the Trek Checkpoint, I've loved that bike. I mean, I've loved all my bikes, right? But the Trek Checkpoint does exactly what it says on the tin. It's a bike for all seasons, all terrain. And while it's my most expensive bike, and it's carbon, so it won't last forever, and really I should be riding the Thai bike, I suppose, I've used it loads. Because when the weather has been really crappy, and I haven't wanted to get out on the road, when it's frozen and thawed and frozen and thawed and there's black ice everywhere, you can still get out across the fields. And actually when it's super cold and the fields freeze, the mud freezes, it gives you access to places that you wouldn't be able to get to in the spring or the autumn, because you get so clogged up with mud. And now, because it's all frozen, it's pretty straightforward. So it's been fantastic. I've enjoyed that bike. Now I have 4 bikes and a conundrum. And the conundrum is, which one do I use? I mean, the Tracker is easy. That's going to be the Trek Checkpoint. I'm planning before then to cycle from Gibraltar home, which I'd like to do relatively quickly. Oh, if I'm camping, that's lending itself towards the checkpoint with its mounting points for luggage and bags and stuff. If I'm camping and going steadier, the checkpoint is lent to it, but it's only a 1x, and there's plenty of ascent. I might be better off with a 2x, which then points at the Damani, which is almost the same bike. I mean, there's very little to distinguish them, except the Damani is 2x, doesn't have quite the same tyre clearance, doesn't have quite the same luggage, but is more road orientated, and is, I'm not sure, I'd have to check, probably lighter. But then, if we're going to go hotel to hotel, super lightweight, and try to do it at Audax pace or ultra pace, maybe, just maybe, it's the titanium bike with some super light luggage on it. I don't know, yet to be determined. So they're my 4 bikes. And the 2 major things I had coming up, the Tracker 100k, only the 100k, couldn't get anything longer, and didn't want to. My first organised event, more about getting away, going and doing something with wifey, and the bike is a reason for going, but not the sole reason. And then the jib thing is a self-planned, self-executed, solo effort, designed as a bit of a fundraiser for the Royal Anglian Regiment, who spent years and years in Gibraltar, and consequently have, I think, the keep at Gibraltar on their collar dogs, and certainly the regimental headquarters in Bury St Edmunds is called Gibraltar Barracks. And I plan to cycle from Gibraltar to Gibraltar Barracks, and I could do it easy with some rest days and 100-mile days in a 3 weeks, steady 3 weeks. I wonder if I could smash it in 10 days, and I just don't know if that's possible. And a nice sort of hey diddle straight down the middle would be just to do it in 2 weeks. Just. That's still going to make some long days, but some decent night's sleep along the way. I'm not good at not sleeping. So that's the next couple of months, and then after that in June I'm taking part in, have entered a new event, first time it's being run, called the Grand Diagonal, which starts off in top left hand side of Portugal and ends up bottom right hand side of Portugal, and that's 1,000 kilometres and 16,500 metres of climbing. It's not a gravel event, it's a road event, and again, not sure which bike to take. Probably a new bike. Is it going to be M+1? Am I going to get myself a new super light come super aero bike for that event? Let's see. Anyway, that was like my introduction to cycling, where I've been and where I'm at. What else to say? Done a few other long distance events. So it's been a traumatic year or two for me and my family, and one of the ways that I've coped with that trauma is by jumping on a bicycle, and cycling has been very good for me. But once again, I think I'm going to stop there and just check that we're still recording before I go on, and then come back.